How's it going, everybody? Brian Alvarez and Dave Meltzer here, Wrestling Observer Radio. It's Christmas! December 25, 2016. Make your 4online.com/WrestlingObserver.com. You know what Dave got for Christmas, everybody? His health back. Because he...
Oh, yes, I was deathly sick, of course, right?
He was so sick because he finished an Observer early, and so he had less work to do. He contracted a terrible illness for 3 straight days and did nothing but sleeping. And now here on Christmas, you regained your health. It's true.
It was like I was compiling ballots, but then I was run down for a couple of days, and I didn't go to Reno, so I actually got, which kind of was a bummer, but not that big of a bummer. I usually...
You didn't go to Reno?
Yeah, I was going to go to Reno on Thursday and Friday. That was sort of the plan, but I didn't go.
Why?
Because I was run down. I was sick as a dog.
No, why were you going to go to Reno?
Because I got so much work done ahead of time, and I was going to hang out with my family in Reno.
Huh.
So that was the idea. So instead, they went, and then we went to the movies and saw Sing today. So that was cool. I'm not like totally recommending that movie to anyone, by the way. It was when you have a 7-year-old girl, that's the movies that you go to. But for me, it wasn't anything special at all.
Well, luckily, my daughter's not old enough to go to these movies yet.
Yeah, I'm like limited in what movie. Well, I'm not limited in the sense that I can go to movies with my son that are, but I always try to go with my daughter, so that sort of limits the movies I can go to.
That's true.
But yeah.
So. Well, any surprises in these ballots this year?
Well, I mean, there's always surprises in the sense of, I mean, sometimes I mean, there's always going to be surprises as far as people who do stuff, but in the end, I would say that I'm like pretty good at figuring who's going to win or at least place high in almost every category, and I will say that like there's never a surprise winner because there's so many ballots that even like if there's like silly picks on a lot of ballots, they'll get. There never can be enough for one to win. I mean, a real silly pick. I mean, some people go, "Oh, that pick was silly," or something like that, based on a certain framework. But you kind of know going in who's going to be getting.
What would be a silly pick, like final deletion match of the year?
That's not getting any support at all. I will say that. I don't really want to say stuff like that because then people will start like sending it in. But I mean, not really. I remember like one year, I mean, like there was one year where Sabu almost won Wrestler of the Year. And like people, like one of my friends actually like sort of like mentioned about how like I was like counting the ballots and I kind of said like, he may win and that wouldn't be good. And it wasn't that I thought, but I knew he was influential and everything. It was more that I knew that like 20 years from now, people would look back and go, "Oh my God, Sabu won Wrestler of the Year." Because I knew that like people would view Sabu very differently in the future than they did at the time. But at the time, people viewed Sabu in a different way. So it really wasn't like a stupid pick. It was a stupid for the future pick. So, which is completely different. Like I wasn't even mad about that either. It's just that like, you kind of like, I know how people are going to react to stuff like in the future a lot of times. So, and that was, I mean, not always, but certainly stuff like that. So, but I mean, no, there's not going to be any picks that people are going to look at. I mean, people will complain about all kinds of stuff. They'll complain about everyone winning, that's not from their home promotion or something, but there's not going to be any like winners that aren't deserving winners. I mean, you could argue that the second place guy or third place guy is just deserving and all that, but it's not going to be, there's not going to be any surprises. It's not like, I mean, if you look at the category, actually this year, to be honest, this year's probably easier to pick in so many categories because in a lot of categories there's super obvious winners and there's not a lot of super obvious second place finishers. So maybe like seconds and thirds aren't so obvious, but really there's a lot of very obvious winners in my mind. I mean, especially on the MMA side, because there's like one guy who like completely dominated the year.
Let's not sway this vote here.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like, if you really think about it, I mean, like, you can go right in there and go, well, that's 1, 2, that's what, four to five categories easily, right? Where, you know what I mean? It's like, you're not swaying the vote. It's just like, anyone else, really would be it almost is like, that one's obvious. But as far as other stuff, I mean, Wrestler of the Year to me, there's probably a few candidates, but there's only really two that could win, and those two are probably going to finish first and second. I'm not going to say who they are, but if you really think about it, I think it's pretty obvious who they would be.
Well, on the subject of MMA, we briefly talked on this. Wrestling Observer Live.
By the way, I do want to bring something up on MMA, which is yesterday's rating, which is not official yet. It won't be official till midweek. But the Christmas Eve Fox special was it may end up being the second or third most watched UFC event ever on television for a taped show. And granted, a lot of that was the lead-in, a lot of it. But I mean, the idea with the number they got, because it's on the overnights, it was 4.7 million viewers. And this isn't going to vary like it usually does because they aired it from 8 to 10 on the West Coast as well. They didn't air it from 5 to 7. So usually the reason that the number goes up is because the 8 to 10, the show, they measure 8 to 10 p.m. on the overnights. And on the West Coast, the show is from 5 to 7, so you're measuring what's on Fox, which is just filler programming that's not going to do much numbers, from 8 to 10. And then the West Coast stuff doesn't count until later in the week when they actually have the final number in. So that's not going to happen this time. And also, because the show ended at exactly 10 o'clock, you don't have a situation where, you're not counting the main event. So the 4,689,000 viewers on average is actually going to be pretty damn close to what that number would be finals, and that would be it would be the, I think it's the second highest one so far, but it might be the third. It depends. I actually have to look up what the first one that they did which was the Cain and Junior Dos Santos show, that beat it. And then the second one they did, which was the Rashad and Phil Davis and Chael Sonnen and Michael Bisping, as I recall, I haven't looked it up, but it was around 4.7 million, and this is 4.7 million as well. So they're neck and neck. So those would be the highest rated, at least on net. I mean, the most watched on network. I know that. God, the Shamrock and Ortiz, and but I think that Shamrock and Ortiz actually, the whole show averaged a little bit less than that one, and I think that there was a Rampage and Dan Henderson on Spike, and for whatever reason, I think that averaged 4.7 million as well. So they're all kind of close, but still, for a lot of people watched Doo Ho Choi and Cub Swanson, which was the idea last night, is that they had this phenomenal match, and not that many people bought the pay-per-view. So isn't this a great idea to put matches that we know are going to be like out of this world on television? And the pay-per-view companies agreed to it. They made their deal. Fox agreed to it, and it turned out to be a big hit. So I think that showing
should be a new holiday tradition.
I think that I definitely think that Christmas Eve on Fox should be a new holiday tradition for UFC. Yes, I think that's it was like, this was not something that was planned. I mean, the whole idea of this was just because no one's going to watch TV on Christmas Eve anyway. It's like a throwaway time slot, and then all of a sudden this happened. I mean, nobody expected this. Nobody expected anything close to this. So now all of a sudden it's like, wow, people are willing to watch with their families kick-ass fights on on Christmas Eve. So now, I mean, New Year's Eve it would be
what
different.
Better way to celebrate the holidays?
Yeah. So now they've fallen into what should be a tradition. Yeah. I mean, they should just go in there and just, every year that December pay-per-view, all you got to do is have knockout of the year and a knockout of the year winner, a knockout of the year contender, and a match of the year, and then a breakthrough performance, and replay it.
Well, listen,
that's all you got to do.
What I think is, if you're going to do a Christmas Eve show, I don't think it necessarily has to be a specific full show. If you did Christmas Eve best of 2017 in the UFC, the greatest knockouts and submissions in a 3-hour show, it's going to do a great number. You can't rely on the December show. It may be a horrible show. I don't know if I'd want to put that on free television on Christmas Eve.
No. I wouldn't want to put a bad show on television at all if you know about it ahead of time.
Or you could just choose the best show of 2017, and that's the one you air on Christmas Eve.
You know what? That may be the one to do. Like choose your best pay-per-view, air 4 fights from that pay-per-view, the 4 best fights on your best pay-per-view. Because you know this year that there's going to be some pay-per-view. There's probably going to be there'll probably be 12 pay-per-views this year or so, maybe 13. And out of the 13, probably 8 or 9 will be good, and 3 or 4 are going to be out of this world, at least 3. So you pick the best of those 3, and you pick the 4 best matches on that, and that's your deal. Yeah, I think that's exactly how you do it. It'd help if it's later in the year, but you know what? It doesn't really have to be. It's a pay-per-view, and a lot of people won't have seen it, and if it was like some, show that had some legendary fight, it's like, hey, we're going to show you, whatever. Let's say Lawler and Condit, just as an example, right? Although they're not big names. But then again, Holloway and Pettis weren't big names either. So, like a fight like the Lawler-Condit fight, which was just absolutely phenomenal fight. You maybe if something like that happens sometime this year, you just go, hey, that's the show, and we're going to replay it.
So this Cyborg story, she has been flagged for an out-of-competition sample taken on December 5th, facing a maximum 1-year suspension. She has been popped for what is described as a diuretic, spironolactone.
Lactone, yeah.
Lactone. And she claims that this is a medication because she had a hard weight cut.
She did have a hard weight
months ago.
She cut from 164 to they showed it on Outside the Lens. She cut from 164 to 140 in 2 days. And that's hard.
It is hard.
That's really hard. So and she had health issues from doing it, so she says.
Now, I know people are going to say, what do you mean, so she says? She had videos that I believe she took in December of her deadlifting 300 pounds.
Yeah.
Kind of odd thing to do when you're in the midst of severe health issues. Am I wrong? Am I being unfair here?
No, you're not being unfair.
I mean, you had serious health issues the last 3 days because of that Observer. I don't think you were out deadlifting 300 pounds.
I didn't have serious health issues. I was tired. For a
Oh, one way or the other. Well, you weren't deadlifting 300 either, were you?
No, I wasn't.
And you were merely tired.
My kidneys weren't like acting up, and my body wasn't like you know what I mean? I didn't have anything close to serious anything, and no, I wasn't deadlifting, nor would I want to any kind of weight of that. Even if I was doing that regularly, I wouldn't have done it in the last 3 days.
Well, anyway, I guess they're going to...
And here's another thing, too.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure that I would be deadlifting heavy if my goal was to make a weight class which is 30 pounds less than I weigh today. I don't know that heavy deadlifting would be high on my list of things to do to lose weight.
I'm suspecting that maybe that's not really a goal.
Well, they created a freaking championship for her. Unfortunately, it's 30 pounds less than she weighs, but they did it.
Can I ask you a question?
You can ask me any kind of question. And about her, I know, I can't even say all the stuff I know, but I know a lot about the situation, obviously. And I've been kind of hinting it to people for a long, long time. And some people get really mad about it. But I know the situation real well, so go ahead.
All right, let's forget this stupid drug test here for a second. Let's just talk about the other issue. So, we saw this Max Holloway fight for an interim title that everybody just considers a fake belt, basically. Mm-hmm. They aired on pay-per-view. It's a fake title in the main event. It's not a fake title. I mean...
Yeah, but guess what? They just had they did one of their best
They did on Christmas Eve, but how did the pay-per-view do?
The pay-per-view did about 150,000 buys.
150,000 buys. Horrible. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, if I recall correctly, Cyborg fought in Brazil on free television, and she popped a pretty damn good number, if I recall correctly.
It was a good number. Absolutely. It was
a good number.
Absolutely good number. It was 1,149,000 viewers, which for, a normal Saturday night show is a good number.
Okay.
It's not a great number, but it's definitely a good number.
So it appears to me that just a title fight, it didn't do all that great. Granted, it was an interim title. But why can't Chris Cyborg just go into the UFC and fight someone her own weight and not have a title on the line?
There's no one her own weight in the UFC.
I'll make somebody up. But my point is, why does there have to be a belt? Why do they have to have a belt for? Why do they have to have a division?
They don't have to do that.
Just let her do a bunch of catchweight fights. Who cares? What difference does it make?
Well, I mean, I don't have a problem with them creating a championship.
I do, because she can't make 145. So now they got to create a 155.
No. Yeah. No. The idea of creating a championship at 145 for her right now is just gonna keep the same problems that you already have. So no,
why just do like they did with Steve Austin and create a belt with her own face on it, and she can just defend the Cyborg belt against anybody that can make whatever weight she's at on any given day. How about that?
That's too pro wrestling. That's not a good idea. But the idea of creating a 155-pound belt for her, and if they find some women that can do that, I got no issue with that at all. I got an issue with them creating a belt at 145 and telling her to get to that weight, because now you're encouraging exactly what gave her the health problems in the first place. And people go, well, it was at 140, not 145. It's like, look, it's still dangerous. I mean, when they had a doctor on that freaking Outside the Lines who said that she shouldn't be fighting at less than 165. Now, I know that's a little bit, what's the word I'm looking for? That's a little overly cautious. So then again, when you start having severe health problems, although you can overcome that, because I'll give you examples, is DC. DC, his kidneys failed in the 2008 Olympics trying to cut to 211. And he had a real psychological problem when he decided he wanted to go to 205, because he thought Cain was going to be world champion at heavyweight, and he was. And so he wanted to go after John Jones at 205. And he made it and everything, but there was a real problem, because, the last time, he was running around at 245, but, his diet wasn't exactly the best at heavyweight, because he could eat whatever he wanted. I mean, he was a guy who was eating pizza at midnight and things like that, and, Kentucky Fried Chicken or Popeye's chicken. But anyway, the whole thing, but he got a nutritionist and everything like that, and, but even so, I mean, he makes it. I don't think it's easy for him to make it, but he can make 205. But so he did overcome that hurdle, but his walk around weight is also much less. I mean, he was walking around probably 250, 255, I'm thinking, and probably fighting at, 240 or 235, whatever it was he was fighting at. I think that his, I don't know what his off season is, but I mean, when I see him, he looks about 228 to me. And then when he's actually getting ready for the fight, 221-ish, and then he gets to 205. But, he makes it and everything like that. But if he was, I know when he didn't make it, which was in the Olympics, he tried to go from 248 to 211 in, a very short period of time. And so he essentially did the same thing that Chris did, was, because Chris tried to get from 175 to 140, which, when you think about it, is just so freaking insane to do. And you're going to hurt yourself doing it. I guess, I mean, I know, like, maybe I'm exaggerating how bad she hurt herself if she's deadlifting 300 pounds. Obviously, she got her strength back, but still, whatever. Let's create a 155-pound title for her. We've talked about this before. Do whatever. I don't know. It's just there's just so many issues, and she's going to be pressured to make 145, and even if she does, then sometimes she'll have a fight where she doesn't make it, and we're going to have all these problems all over again, because she missed twice at 145 before, and that's when she was a lot smaller than she is now. So I already, I can kind of see where this is going, and even if, again, she's risking her health, and who wants that in this day and age? It's like a lot of guys risk their health, to make weight before, and we kind of like figured out that this is like really bad. When somebody died from it, it was kind of like someone's going to die from this, and somebody did, and I think 2 people did actually. And at that point, it's kind of like, okay, as soon as somebody dies, we're going to have to clean it up. So now they're starting to clean it up, and now we don't really want to encourage people to do this stuff anymore. So I just don't like the idea of doing anything that would encourage her. And if it was normal and she got a nutritionist and she trained differently and everything like that, I would have a completely different attitude about this. But since she's not willing to do that, then let's not pretend that she is, and just pretend that it's just something that people do, because it shouldn't be.
So here's what's going on with Cain Velasquez. He was scheduled to fight Fabricio Verdum coming up this weekend. And he goes and does his interview and starts talking about all of this pain he's in. He needs back surgery, scheduled back surgery for after the fight.
Yeah, January 4th.
Pain that extends down his leg. He has a hard time standing for more than 30 minutes at a time. Says all of this stuff. He's taking CBD oil to help the pain.
Oh, why did he do this interview?
So he does this interview, and he gets a call, I guess, from the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and I guess a doctor is going to check him out. So he goes to the doctor, and
he got cleared.
Yes.
I just want you to know that.
Yep. He did an interview the day before, and he actually said it was going to happen. He goes, I'm going to go to the doctor. Doctor's going to clear me, and everything's going to be fine. And in fact, he went to the doctor. The doctor looked at him. The doctor cleared him to fight. He called the Nevada State Athletic Commission. They got the doctor on the phone. The doctor said this man's cleared to fight. And then the Nevada State Athletic Commission said, we believe this man is unfit to compete, and we are pulling him off the show.
They had to. The commission, because this is the same thing that I said about Rashad a couple weeks ago. If you have this information, and what happens if let's just say he got hurt, and he got hurt really bad, and it was his back that got hurt really bad, there's going to be hell to pay by that commission. You cleared a guy who was smoking marijuana to alleviate the pain and needed back surgery, and you cleared him to fight. They would be, you know what I mean? It's like the risk is too high. That's the problem.
Thing too with the CBD is he said it's the only thing. It's the only thing that eases the pain. Think about that. Yeah. Think about the level of pain that a man must be in to say, this is the only thing that eases my pain.
Well, here's the other problem, too, is like, I can tell you that guy has an unreal pain threshold, but he was training his ass off. I mean, he was training.
He's Cain Velasquez.
He was training his ass off. What was it, yesterday? I think, was it yesterday? The day before yesterday? Maybe not yesterday. He's probably resting yesterday. But the point is, he was, I got sent what he was doing. I mean, in the sense that, he was training hard, and the guys who he was training with were in disbelief. He got pulled. I guess he was doing really well, but I mean, the commission really, there's that part of you that just goes, oh my God, the doctor cleared him and he's been training so hard and it's a week from the fight and he had no qualms about the fight. And here's the thing about him is he will not take a fight when he is badly hurt in a way that he thinks that will cost him a fight. He did that with Junior in the fight. And ever since then, when he's hurt, he'll pull out. Now he's hurt here, but everyone goes in hurt, and I'm sure he was hurting severely, but it was not affecting his training to a great degree. Because if he was like crippled, and the fact that he couldn't train hard and he didn't think he could perform at a high level, he would not fight. He would not himself. He's not a guy who's, you know what I mean? Going like, oh my God, I need the money for this and this and this. I got to fight. He's not that guy. So that's one of the keys to this story. But the commission really did have no choice because he made it public. So it's one of those things where, you know, it's like if the commission has knowledge ahead of time of something, they can't risk it. It's the same reason why Ontario nixed Rashad. And a lot of commissions, it's going to be hard for Rashad to get cleared, even though there's nothing that Rashad has that he hasn't always had, you know, and he fought everywhere with it. But the whole thing is like now it's going to be really tough because everyone knows about it. And if something bad happens, you know what I mean? It's like the commission's going to look like fools, and that's one of the things that they can't afford. So it's, you know, it is what it is. I mean, it's like it's a bad situation. I don't fault anyone. I mean, what it does, there is a lesson here, and the lesson here is don't say anything. Do the Luke Rockhold thing, right? You know, where, you know, every time I see Luke Rockhold,
it's a great lesson.
You know, the you know, every time, how's your camp? And he like laughs at me because he's always hurt, you know, and it's like, you ain't going to tell me. And because if he does, then I'll write it. And if I write it, then they may pull him from the fight. They almost pulled him from the fight where he lost to Bisping. I mean, they almost pulled him from that fight because Bisping, I think, no, you know what? It was a press conference where he finally admitted it. Bisping was saying it for weeks. He's got a bad knee. Everyone knows he's got a bad knee, and he wasn't saying anything. And then at the press conference, you know, finally he got goaded in this argument with Bisping where he says, yes, whatever it was, tore my MCL 4 weeks ago or whatever. All of a sudden the commission in California was like, hey, you know, we may not let you fight. They did let him fight. He got knocked out. But yeah, so we're going to have a lot more, you know, but every fighter does that. You know, they don't say when they're hurt. So you're going to hear, but this is why you don't, because this is what the commission has to do.
And the other thing is that Fabricio Verdum is not getting a new opponent, so he's off the show.
Yeah. Well, with the surgery that Cain is getting is the same surgery that he got after which fight was it? Was it after the Brown fight or before the Brown?
All I know is it lasted 1 year, so I guess you can do the math.
He had the surgery a year ago?
Well, he said that he got the surgery and he felt great for a year.
Yeah, he got the surgery the same week that Punk got the surgery. And he was back in a couple of months. I mean, I would say if he gets this, you know...
Well, the Travis Brown fight was July 2016. Verdum fight was June 2015. So it would have to have been after the Verdum fight.
He would have gotten it when he was preparing for... Remember that? Was he going to fight Stipe or somebody? He was preparing for a fight that he had to pull out of, which I think might have been like... When did like I said, it was the same time Punk got his back surgery. So I think it was like February, maybe? And then he fought January, February? And then he fought in July.
Verdum fight was supposed to be February 6, 2016. Both fighters backed out citing injuries.
So it was like the week before that fight when he had to pull out of that fight.
So it didn't even last a year.
February. Yeah, just under a year. Yeah. Well, I mean, that you know, it was always the thing on Cain, you know, I mean, I was told this in 2007, you know, that Cain was going to be, you know, not by a training partner of his, that Cain was going to be the best heavyweight there ever was, which you can argue, I mean, from an all-around standpoint, you can't say that because he didn't prove it, because he didn't fight enough to prove it. Although the Cain that fought Travis Brown was, I don't know if I've ever seen a heavyweight better than that, but that injuries would get him in his early to mid 30s because of the way he trains, and that in fact did happen. So he may be on borrowed time. I mean, because
it's pretty clear he's on borrowed time. If he had one surgery that didn't even help him out for a full year, that's borrowed time, and now he needs another one.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you never know. I mean, you never know with backs. I mean, it's like sometimes people get injuries and they're chronic, and then sometimes they heal. But I mean, yeah. I mean, I would say the odds are not good that that's going to happen here. The odds are that he's going to have a chronic back problem, and it's going to plague him for the rest of his career, and the surgery may alleviate. I mean, he probably needed more extensive surgery, but didn't want to be down for so long. So that was part of the issue too. It's probably like the surgery that he probably needs would probably keep him out for, a year or two, but he doesn't want to lose that year or two at this stage. And I understand that he wouldn't want to. So yeah. So Verdum was offered, they called Junior Dos Santos. Junior immediately accepted. Even though he's not in shape. I mean, Junior was training for Stefan Struve in, I forget the date. It's in about a month or so, I think. I think it's later this month. But, or next month, late January. Or maybe early February. But he agreed, and Verdum turned down, Junior, which is interesting because, I mean, granted, it's a very different fight. You're training for a different guy. But you're the one ready to fight, and he's not ready to fight. But Junior's a very dangerous guy, so it is, again, if it was the main event and he did this, I think a lot of people would be down on him, but it wasn't the main event. So, it's what it is. It hurts the show, and then who was it that got pulled from the show? The one who was going to face Angela Hill, Jessica Andrade. I think it was. She got pulled, so a couple of matches down off the show. So, and then we got a main event where nobody's talking. The two main eventers are in freaking hiding. So, Cain and Verdum was going to be like, heavily promoted all week. So that hurts. So it's really up to Dominic. Dominic's going to have to do all the talking.
Well, luckily, we've got Dominic.
Luckily,
Cruz.
it's Dominic.
He'll do just fine. It would be nice to have Ronda Rousey all over the place doing publicity. Obviously, it would be good for her pocketbook, but it's not like without her, it's going to be Demetrius doing all the publicity. Dominic Cruz will do just fine.
Yeah, but he can't get places that she can. I mean, he's great. He's better talking than she is, but she can get anywhere, and he's only going to get in the same those same places. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Well, we're going to learn. I mean, if they do a big number, and Ronda's done some big numbers that you wouldn't expect going in. If she can pull a big number, and she doesn't do pub, there's going to be a lot of people not want to do pub. If she does a really shitty number, which may, we don't know that it's going to be because of pub or because it's a Friday night. I think that's where it's bad, is because I think that if she was doing the pub everywhere and going like, and by the way, it's Friday night, because we already learned from Lesnar that Friday night hurts a lot. But if she went everywhere and goes, it's Friday night, and drummed in that message, it's Friday night, you can alleviate some of that problem. But she's not doing that. So this is like really, to me, this is really the fight plus her opponent. You know what I mean? It's like she's fighting Amanda Nunes, and belt or whatever. It's Amanda Nunes. It's not like it's Holly Holm. If it was Holly Holm, and you know what? If it was Holly Holm, or if it was Misha Tate, you could almost work it into the storyline of her not doing media, and it would, I don't think it would hurt that much. Holly Holm, you could kind of work it into the storyline a little bit. I mean, I don't think because they're already stars that she's facing. When she's facing Amanda Nunes, who's not a star, even though she's a champion, we'll see. We'll see. I mean, again, it may still draw, and then it may tell people that she's a big star and doesn't need to do media. She may not even do the weigh-ins. You know that?
She may not do the weigh-ins?
Yep.
Oh, the public version of the weigh-ins.
Yeah, she's got to weigh in, obviously.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, because, they're not doing a press conference on Wednesday at all, which hurts Dominic, in my mind, because Dominic and Cody Garbrandt were probably going to, go out there and talk it up. So it hurts them by not doing a press conference. Amanda Nunes is not doing any media either, which I think, I'm not sure what the story is. I'm not sure if she's not doing it because they feel that if she does it, it'll make it look bad that Ronda's not, or if she's going with the attitude, well, she's not doing it, I'm not going to do it either, which in her case is really, if she did do that, then she is extremely foolish, because this is her chance to be a star, and she should be doing media like freaking crazy. You don't let this window go by, because she may never have a fight this big in her life. And in fact, more likely than not, she'll never have a fight this big, win or lose. Even if she wins, she's probably never going to have a fight this big the rest of her life. So she should be like taking advantage of that, but she's not. So there's no public workouts, no press conference, and then the weigh-ins. I mean, she may not be, but it is, I mean, I had heard last week, not that she wasn't going to be at the weigh-ins, but that there was definitely a thing where she didn't want to go to the weigh-ins, or she might not be at the weigh-ins. So we'll see. Because that's too much. But then again, not having a press conference on Wednesday is too much too. I mean, she could, if she wanted to do limited media and only the big boys. I mean, that's what she does anyway. I don't got a problem with, there's no problem there. Because the key people will get it. If she wants to talk to Sports Illustrated, whatever. I mean, she did talk, like ESPN will get her, I think no matter what, because of Ramona, but who she's tight with. But that's probably, where it's going to end up. And then, but yeah, I don't know. But if the not doing a press conference, especially, the phone call, how hard is that for the phone call thing, right? The phone call, you're between workout sessions. It's an hour. You talk to the press. You don't have to leave your freaking house. They can come to your house and do the phone call. Just didn't do it. But, it's not a matter of inconvenience. This is not about inconvenience. This is not about, wanting to give her all to win a championship. This is because she hates the media. A lot of people I've seen, she wants every chance to win, and she's going to lower her chances and blah, blah, blah. This has nothing to do with that. This is that if she says she doesn't want to do media that's going to run you ragged, and that's her choice, and she really wants to win this fight, more power to her, and cut down on your media, because she can't satisfy anyone anyway because of the amount of people that want to talk to her. But this is not about that at all. This is because she believes that they turned on her, and they mocked her because she lost, and they were unfair to her and all this. And it's like, yes, there were people who fall into that category, without a doubt. Yes, there were people who took cheap shots at her, and yes, there were people who were absolutely fair to her, and she did lose the fight, and all this, and and most people didn't turn on her. Maybe some fans did. Who knows? Whatever. But I mean, the whole thing is that like it's so, you know what I mean? I mean, it's just that generalizing. It's like going on Twitter. Everyone on Twitter is an idiot. It's like, nah, 80% are cool, 20% are idiots, and you kind of like, I told the story. They kind of may get to you more, but that's really the minority. And just the same thing with her. It's like, yeah, there's all kinds of people who wanted to see her fail and were gloating when she failed. I mean, like, and she did have it more than almost anyone I've ever seen, especially because she had so much success. People wanted her to fail from day one. She kept being successful, and they're getting madder and madder because she kept being successful. And then finally she lost. And some of those people really did jump on her, without a doubt. Some of it was justified. Look, her own mom talked about her training. You know what I mean? Her mom's not a dummy by any means. And that's going to be like an interesting thing on this fight anyway. It's like, is she training, like all these clips I watch her training, she's doing boxing. It's like, she's not a boxer. Is her judo going to be at her best? I mean, I don't know. If her judo's, I mean, I know she's training judo, but I mean, if her judo's sharp, it's got to be. Her judo and her arm bar is going to be her best weapons. So you got to train those. You can't pretend you're a boxer. But the one thing I know is she's in great shape as far as cardiovascular conditioning. As far as weight, her weight is low. I don't know if that's good or bad, because what I have seen of fighters that I know who get on that kick of, I'm getting my natural weight down really low, so I only have to cut a few pounds. Like let's say a welterweight. Let's say, without mentioning names, there's a welterweight who fought at, 190-ish, 188, 190, normally throughout his career. And he got on this kick of, he was cutting a lot of weight. I mean, that's normal. It's a little more than normal weight. And he's going, you know what? I'm going to get my natural body weight down to 175. I'm going to diet. I'm going to do way, way, way more cardio. And all through camp, it's like, man, I feel freaking great. Because, of course, he feels great. He's lighter, and he's got more cardio. But when he was in the fight, is he didn't have, like, it's like he could lift the weights. I remember, like, it's like, my weights aren't even down. And it's like, okay, they're not. But when you're pushing and he's pushing back and everything like that, that's not the same as a barbell. And that's one of the things is, like, when they're pushing her around, like, let's say she goes into the cage at 140, 142 instead of, say, 150. Okay, 8 pounds is significant on someone, especially at her size. When they're pushing her, they're pushing a lighter person, so she's going to be pushed easier. And when she's pushing back, she's pushing against a bigger person rather than someone her own size, so her pushing's not going to be as powerful. And when the key to her game is that judo takedown, it's a significant part of the game. Now, maybe this will help her because she will have more stamina. And Amanda Nunes does get tired, so this could work, but it does change the dynamics. And I've seen this in a lot of different fighters where they get light and they tell you how great they feel and everything like that, but when they go on there and fight, they're weaker. And when when a lot of your game, it's like if you were a pure kickboxer, maybe it wouldn't be so bad because that's a lot of that speed and movement. But when you're primarily a grappler, and strength is very, very important in your game. So the extra pounds is actually pretty significant. So that may be something to, maybe it'll be no factor in the fight. Maybe it'll be a huge factor in the fight. Mentally, who the hell knows? Because, everyone's, she's mentally weak. She's done with it. It's like, who the hell knows? Maybe she is, maybe she isn't. Or, and nobody knows until she gets in the fight. I've been reading so many people tell me how she's mentally weak. She, her reaction to losing sucked. There's no doubt about it. But how that's going to determine what she's going to be like on Friday, that's the great unknown. And that probably is the most significant factor in the whole fight is where her, how she is mentally and how she was trained, and she went to this, again, same trainer. That's probably not a good idea, but that's the deal. That's how it's going to go down. So I don't know what's going to happen in the fight. It's a real big one because if she wins, she'll probably fight again. If she loses, I doubt she'll fight again. And, her fighting is a big, big deal. If this is her last fight, she didn't promote it on a Friday. Boy, oh boy. And it doesn't do well. Boy, oh boy. It's a whole bunch of dumb things happened all at once, huh?
That would be many dumb things all at once.
Yeah. Booking her on the Friday was a mistake no matter what. That's, even if they do 1 million buys, the reality is that if she had promoted it and it was on a Saturday, it was probably going to do 1.3 million or 1.4 million. If they do 700,000, which is probably more likely, the reality is it probably was 1 million buy show. But, she didn't promote it and all that. If they do 500,000, then, we got our answers. You know what I mean? As far as like, that'll tell everyone, man, you better promote your fight because people will, if you don't promote it, like if you can't bother promoting it, the reality is that a lot of fans won't bother to watch it because they don't. If you're not pushing it, then your fans will think, well, it's not that important to you. So we'll see.
Oh, let's do some of these questions here. Mailbag at WrestlingObserver.com. This person says, in 1992/1993, when exactly did Vince know that Hulk Hogan would be coming back to work WrestleMania 9? And when was the decision made to do the 2 title switches in one night? Had Hogan not been given the belt, does Dave know if the original finish was still for Yokozuna to beat Bret Hart, or if Bret would have won to put the babyface over?
I believe Vince knew all along that Hogan was coming back a year later when he took the year off. I believe in Vince's mind that he knew that. Everything that I know indicated that. As far as the decision on the championship, I don't know because nobody knew until like literally that weekend. No one knew. So, he may have known, Vince may have known for 6 months, and maybe 1 or 2 guys in the inner circle may have known for 6 months or 3 months or a month. I don't know. But I know Bret didn't know until the weekend or right before. I don't know when Hogan knew. But it wasn't one of these things where it wasn't normal. It wasn't the normal WrestleMania where you kind of know way in advance, for sure. So I don't have an answer.
This person says, Chael's son had mentioned on his podcast recently how Bellator offers TV ratings incentives to its fighters, much like how UFC gives pay-per-view bonuses. Does Dave have any insight as to how this might be structured? For instance, Benson...
I don't know, and it's Chael. So
you really don't know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, it's Chael, so you don't know, and I've never heard that. But if they do, I don't know what the structure is. I don't know. I've never, talked to anyone who's brought up that. I mean, Chael may have it in his contract. That wouldn't surprise me if he would work it into his own contract, or try to work it in, because Chael will promote the hell out of his fight.
This person here says, I saw a rumor recently that UFC is considering reducing their pay-per-view numbers and increasing their Fox and FS1 shows instead. Do you think this would be to allow pay-per-views to have deeper cards?
I think, what was the number this year they're doing, I think the plans for 13 pay-per-views, so that's the normal number. The idea of doing I think inevitably they're going to do less pay-per-views, but that's because, I don't think they'll do less pay-per-views unless they get a huge increase in television rights fees. At these television rights fees, they're not cutting back on any pay-per-views. But the reality is that people are only going to buy, whatever it is. They're only going to buy certain fighters as pay-per-view stars from this point forward. And you're going to have deep shows unless you have those stars on the show. And even if you do, you kind of want to have deep shows anyway. So it is going to probably in time work out to be like that. But yeah, I think that they should have deeper. I think the pay-per-view shows probably will end up, if they're doing 5 a year or 6 a year. And I don't know if they'll get that low, but they may. I mean, again, because you're only going to have a couple pay-per-view stars. But whatever it is, I do believe that in that situation you will have deeper. The pay-per-view shows themselves will be deeper shows, yes.
And this person here says, who was the most successful midget wrestler of all time? Is there any midget wrestler that you would consider to be Hall of Fame worthy?
Well, I mean, the two big stars that you would say would be Sky Lolo and Lord Littlebrook. I think Sky Lolo was more famous. Lord Littlebrook was a better wrestler for sure. I don't know. I mean, if you want a representative in the Hall of Fame, you can say that. But I mean, as far as like someone of a certain level, of the Hall of Fame level, would they be at that level? No, not a chance. Not even close. I mean, if were they bigger in the business than Dick Murdoch, who's not in the Hall of Fame, or someone at that level, or Mark Lewin, or, not even close.
This person here says, was there a fallout, Bill Eadie and Vince McMahon in the early 90s, or was it simply a case of Vince firing someone that was old?
I don't, they had problems back and forth. I don't know the all the details of what it was. I know he felt he was treated unfairly as far as, and I know he wanted to use the Demolition name after he left, saying that, he came up with it. I know Randy Cully claimed he came up with it, but, yeah, I mean, they sued, the suit was settled, and now he's suing again, even though I think I was under the impression that the settlement of the first suit precluded him from suing again, although this suit is a concussion suit, so maybe you could make the argument that, well, he sued over rights issues, that's settled. He didn't sue over concussion issues, so this is a new thing. But WWE is taking it like, hey, he signed away his rights to sue when he settled the first case.
Here's a good question. It harkens back to, should Sabu have won Wrestler of the Year many years ago? This person says, when voting for Match of the Year, what should weigh more heavily? What you thought of the match the night of the show, or in hindsight? He says, I'm thinking specifically...
That's an interesting question. But
well, here's the way I tied into Sabu. So, if someone thinks that Sabu is the best wrestler of 1995, for example, and then in 2015 they're going to look back and go, man, can you believe that this guy won the Wrestler of the Year? I mean, should the voting be more about now? Or
the voting should be about now. The voting should because you don't.
Well,
know
then if Sabu wins, he wins. That's fine. Doesn't matter what people think in 15 years, right?
Right? Yeah. No. That's what I say. I just know what was going to happen. But no, I completely. Of course, it's not because who knows? That was just my prediction. I mean, I'll put it this way. I'll give you an example. It's like when at WrestleMania 10, there was the Owen Hart Bret Hart match and the Shawn Razor Ramon match. Okay, I can tell you from being around that night, the next day, for a whole week, everybody in wrestling thought the Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon match was the greatest match in wrestling history. And I remember thinking that, and I thought that night, it was the best match on the show. I think I gave that one 5, and I gave Bret and Owen 4 3/4. But I also figured that 20 years from now, or 10 years from now, the Bret and Owen match would be viewed as a better match because it was a better match. But Shawn and Razor was groundbreaking. But it was groundbreaking in a way that people were going to top and did top. If you watched it now, you would go, it would still be a great match, I'm sure. I haven't watched it because I don't do that. But I'm sure if you watched it now, it would still be a great match. But I would think that the Bret and Owen match would be better. Because I remember when I watched the Bret Owen match, and I was like, this match is, this because that some matches, like, no matter what happens timing-wise, they're going to kind of hold the test of time, and sometimes you just don't know. If it's a real athletic match, guys may get more athletic, so it may not stand out as much. Or in the case of the ladder match, it was an innovative match, so everyone copied those spots and added new ones. So all of a sudden, it's like, well, I've seen all that stuff. Well, that day, nobody had seen it. So whatever. But I mean, as far as like match of the year, it's about that day and time. I mean, it's like the Shawn Michaels Razor Ramon match on that day was the better match of the two. I mean, if you watch it now, it wasn't, but neither of those guys, and Bret and Owen weren't either. They're not wrestling for 2016 and how people would view it. I mean, wrestlers always kind of joke about that. It's just like, cause I remember when I would watch some tapes from the 70s, and I remember talking to Terry Funk about this, and it's like, God, these guys weren't that great, and he just goes, you're an idiot, like that, and he goes, because there's going to come a day where you're going to look back and you're going to go, you were an idiot there, and the day came, and he was right, because I'm going like, well, they're not doing, they're not moving as fast as the guys now, and they're not this and this, it's whatever, it doesn't look as good, but it's like, but they were working for that audience in the 1970s. And the guys who were having great matches in the 70s, they were still great matches. If they didn't look great in the 80s, that doesn't matter. It's a lot, sometimes when I watch, people will look back at tapes of the 60s or something like that and just try to determine who the good workers and the bad workers were. It's like, you weren't alive then. I mean, you can sort of see certain things, but you don't know the style. You don't know what it is. When I look back at stuff that I grew up watching years later, I'm so far away from that style that they were doing then and now that I'm looking at it going like, God, this isn't so good. You know what I mean? But of course it's good. It was, great matches back then. Of course they're good. It's just, the style, again, athletically, the style has changed. We're better or worse, whatever. That's all argument. It's different. And it'll always be different. Every generation is going to be a different style than the generation before. And if you're judging today's matches by 1980 standards, then you're out of touch. That's the reality, because it's always going to change and always going to be different. Because that's what it is. It's just like music or anything else. It's like, great music is still great music, so to speak, and great songs and all that. But what is a great song in 1980 and a great song in 2016? That's completely different music.
This person here says, on Bruce Pritchard's podcast.
Oh, my Bruce Pritchard.
Yeah. He said that WWE received 55 to 60% of the pay-per-view cut 20 years ago. He said they negotiated over 50% because they were a big content supplier.
Yeah, I heard that. It's funny because I've seen like the grosses, and they were almost always added up to 50%. So I don't know. And I know UFC was under 50%. They were like 40% for a while, and then they got up to 50, and UFC was doing more pay-per-views than WWE. But I can't say it's wrong. There were a lot of fights, but I remember the fights, again, 20 years ago. What was the big fight? The big fight was 2002. There was a big fight. And as I recall, that was over 45 to 50, or 40 to 45 or something like that. It was not like 50, and because that was all public. So I think that there was because it was supposed to be 50-50, but like the satellite companies claimed that their station also would get like a 10% off the top. So the 50-50 would really be 45-45, but then the satellite company would get the 10. So they were really getting 55, but it was really supposed to be 50-50. And they were arguing over the 5. You know what I mean? Where WWE wanted that 5. And I don't remember. I think that they lost that fight because they backed down. So I know that they were only getting 45 at some point, but I mean when in one of the fights. So it doesn't sound right to me, but I can't say. I can say that I can say in the 2002 fight because that was public, that they were fighting over the difference between 45 and 50.
This person here says, actually, the other part of the question was about UFC, so already answered that. Does Dave think that we will ever see AJ Styles versus Samoa Joe again?
I think so.
I guess he's asking if Samoa Joe's being called up to SmackDown.
I don't know. It would make sense to me that he would be, but I don't know that as fact.
Alrighty, one more here.
I think Joe needs to be a heel. Actually, you know what? AJ probably should be a babyface, but I'm not so sure just yet. I don't know if I would rush to do the turn because there's still the Cena feud, and there's still maybe, I don't know what they're going to do with Undertaker. I don't know. But I think, Styles has a couple of programs that need to be finished before he does a turn. But I do think that AJ, people, at a lot of the shows, he's getting cheered more than Ambrose. And I'm sure at some of the shows he's going to get cheered.
What a surprise.
Yeah, he's going to get cheered more than Cena. But at some of the shows, he's the most popular guy. And, he's still, well... So I think that he, down the line by the end of 2017, if not by the middle of 2017, he probably really should be a babyface.
One more here. Can he tell us why when he was growing up the big boxing fights were on a Monday night and not on a Saturday night?
I don't know.
Saturday night's like a thing now, but there were a ton of pay-per-views. Like, people think about wrestling pay-per-views always being on Sunday.
Wasn't WrestleMania one year on, I think WrestleMania 2 was like on a Tuesday, wasn't it? Or a Monday?
I don't remember.
WrestleMania 2 was definitely a weeknight. I remember that much. WrestleMania 1 was on a Sunday. I know that. I think a Sunday. I know it was a weekend afternoon for us. Might have been a Saturday. But I don't know. The answer. I mean, in those days, the shows you got okay. In those days, the shows were such a big deal that it really didn't matter the day of the week you had them on. It wasn't like people were creatures of habit at the rate they are now when it came to entertainment. Like now, if you have like a basketball game, okay, and it's, let's say, the finals, right? And depending on the night of the week, your rating is going to go up or down because people are creatures of habits. I think that like 30 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. That no matter what night you had it, like, Saturday night used to be a huge night for television, and then now, you could put a great show on Saturday night, it's going to die. I don't say die, but it won't do what shows used to do on Saturday night by any means. It's like there's certain nights, Friday and Saturday night are tough for television now. That certain nights are tough. Saturday night is always a great night for going out and seeing entertainment, like wrestling Saturday night. Well, in the old days, there were places that had Monday Night Wrestling. That was the tradition. Madison Square Garden was Monday night, was normally Monday nights. Tampa was Tuesday night every week. Miami was Wednesday night every week. San Jose was Wednesday night every week. But if you had a great card and you moved the date and it was a great card, you're still going to do the business because it's that's just how it was. Now, you get everyone in that certain thing and then you switch dates. If you put Raw next week, that let's just say they preempted it for the dog show like they used to do, and you put it on Thursday, it ain't getting 3 million viewers. It ain't getting close to 3 million viewers because it's just how it is. It's just different.
All right, everybody. On that note, we're going to wrap it up here for today. We'll be back on Monday after the Raw show. There's a lot of stuff up. Tons of stuff actually went up over the last couple of days. There's a new back issue of The Observer up tomorrow. New issue of The Observer out on Wednesday, which Dave is all